A lot of first time buyers are waiting for the perfect interest rate, the perfect home price, and the perfect market. The problem is those three things rarely show up at the same time. So, how do you know when it is actually the right time for you to buy? Welcome back to the First Time Homebuyer Pros Podcast. Right now, one of the biggest questions first time homebuyers are asking is, should I buy now or should I wait? By the end of this episode, you'll understand what really determines whether it is a good time for you to buy, how interest rates and home prices should factor into your decision, and the financial and personal signs that may tell you whether you are ready or not. So let's get into it. Before we talk about whether now is a good time to buy, I think we need to acknowledge why so many first-time buyers feel stuck right now. Interest rates feel high, especially when you compare them with the rates people saw a few years ago, or if you hear it on the news or friends or family. Home prices can feel intimidating, and once you see the estimated monthly payment, the entire idea of buying can start to feel overwhelming. A lot of buyers are also afraid of making the wrong decision. They worry that they are going to buy right before prices fall, or they worry that they will buy today and regret not waiting another 6 months. Then you go on social media and everybody seems to have a different opinion, right? One person says, buy now. Another person says, wait. Someone else says the market is about to crash. And then you hear, just buy now and refinance later. That is a lot of conflicting information when you are trying to make one of the biggest financial decisions of your life. So if you feel nervous, confused, or even a little stuck, that is completely normal. Take it from me. It took me 5 years to purchase my first home because of everything I just talked about. And honestly, you're not supposed to have all of this figured out on your own. Instead of trying to predict the market, let's just first define what being ready actually looks like. One of the biggest things I want first-time buyers to understand is that the market can be imperfect while you are still personally ready to buy a home. Interest rates may not be where you want them to be. Inventory may be limited. Home prices may still feel high. But the more important question is whether buying works for your life. Do you have stable income? Do you feel secure in your employment? Your own financial stability matters much more than trying to perfectly time interest rates. The next thing is monthly payment. And I say this all the time. Just because you are qualified for a certain payment does not mean you should take on that payment. The bank looks at your income, debts, credit, and guidelines that they follow. But they do not know your lifestyle, how often you travel, how much you like to save each month, what you spend helping your family, going out, or simply enjoying your life, right? So the payment has to feel comfortable in your life realistically, not just on paper. You should also have money left over after closing. I never advise to use every dollar you have for the down payment and closing costs. You still need reserves. Money for moving, furniture, maintenance, emergency, and a normal life. And lastly, the home should solve a real need. Maybe you want stability. Maybe you are starting a family. Maybe you want to live closer to work, be in a certain school district, or finally put down roots in a community, right? Those are meaningful reasons to buy. So the first question is not, will rates drop? The first question you should ask yourself, does this work for my life today? Now, there are absolutely situations where waiting is the smarter decision here. Maybe your income is inconsistent. Maybe your employment feels uncertain, or maybe you are currently going through a career transition. That doesn't mean you will never be ready to buy. It just simply means that this is probably not the right time to take on a long-term payment. Another warning sign is when buying would require you to use nearly every dollar you have just to close. I never want someone to receive the keys to their first home and immediately feel financially trapped. The same thing applies to the monthly payment. Again, just because you qualify does not mean that the payment is going to feel comfortable every month. If the projected payment is going to create constant stress, prevent you from saving, reinvesting, or cause you to rely on credit cards whenever an unexpected expense comes up, waiting may be the financially smarter decision here. Sometimes high-interest credit card debt needs to be paid down first, and sometimes your credit needs to be improved. Cleaning up those areas can improve your qualification, reduce your monthly obligations, and put you in a much stronger and more comfortable position later on. Buying a home is a major commitment. You do not want to force a purchase when your life still feels uncertain here. But here's the important part. If you decide to wait, waiting should come with a plan, okay? Maybe the plan is to save another $15,000. Maybe it is paying off 2 credit cards. Maybe it is improving your credit score or building more consistent income. There should be a target and a direction. Waiting is not falling behind when you are using that time to be prepared and ready. Like I always love to say, sometimes you have to take 1 step back to move 2 steps forward, or even 100 steps forward. On the other hand, buying may make sense when your income is stable and you still have money left after closing. You want to know that after the down payment, closing costs, and moving expense, you still have reserves available, okay? The monthly payment should also fit your actual budget. You should still be able to save for a rainy day fund, handle emergencies, contribute toward your long-term goals, and of course, my favorite, still take a vacation and enjoy your life because you only get one life. Now, we are going to have a separate episode specifically about budgeting for your first home. There is a major difference between the payment you qualify for and the payment you can comfortably live with. Another important factor is how long you expect to stay in the home. Buying a home comes with upfront costs, closing costs, the normal expense of eventually selling. So if you already know there is a strong chance you're going to move within the next 1 to 3 years, renting may be the better financial decision here. Homeownership generally makes more sense when you plan to stay long enough to build equity and give the property time to appreciate, which basically just means giving the home enough time to gain in value. The home should also solve a meaningful need, like giving your family more space. Maybe it provides stability. Maybe it allows you to live closer to work or finally have a place that feels like your own. But you also have to understand the responsibility that comes with it. Once you own the home, you are the landlord. If the water heater breaks, you cannot call the property manager. If the roof leaks or an appliance stops working, that responsibility falls on you, trust me. That does not mean you should be afraid of homeownership here. It just simply means you should understand what you're signing up for and prepare for all of it. And finally, the deal should work using today's numbers. It should not work only if rates fall later. You do not need a perfect market, you just need a sustainable plan. Which brings us to this question every first-time homebuyer is always asking. Should I wait for interest rates to drop? Yes, a lower interest rate can improve your buying power and reduce your monthly payment. But here's a flip side to it as well, right? If rates fall, more buyers enter the market, which could mean more competition, more multiple offer situations where you have to offer higher, fewer seller concessions or credit opportunities, and potentially higher home price. So even if interest rate improves, the overall buying environment may become more competitive. The truth is that nobody can guarantee exactly when rates will fall, how far they will fall, or what home prices will be doing when that happens. Even experts can sometimes get it wrong. You may also hear people say, buy now and refinance later. A future refinance may be possible, yes, and it could be a great opportunity, but it is never guaranteed. Even if the data and experts shows it eventually could, rates may not move as quickly as we predict or would hope. Your property value can change. Your income, employment, debts, or credit scores could also be different when it is time to refinance. That is why I never want a buyer purchasing a home only banking on future refinance. The deal should work based on today's numbers. You should be able to look at the payment today and say, I can comfortably manage this. Then, if rates fall and refinance opportunity becomes available later, that is a plus for you. Remember this from today. Buy based on the payment you can afford today. Treat a future refinance as a potential bonus. So how do you know whether you are actually ready? Here are the questions I want every first-time buyer to ask themselves. First, what is the maximum monthly payment can I comfortably live with? Not the maximum monthly payment you qualify for. What payment allows you to own the home while still saving and enjoying your life? Second, how much money will you have left after closing? Will you still have reserves for emergencies, repairs, moving expenses, and unexpected costs? Third, do you plan to stay in the area for several years? You do not have to know exactly what your life will look like 10 years from now, but you should have a reasonable expectation that you are going to stay long enough for homeownership to make sense. Fourth, can you handle maintenance and unexpected expenses? Even a brand new home will eventually need something repaired or replaced. You should have both the financial ability and the mindset to deal with that responsibility. Fifth, would you still feel okay if home prices or interest rates did not move the way you hoped? You should not buy only because you expect prices to rise quickly or because you are counting on rates dropping. And lastly, have you reviewed real numbers with a lender before touring homes? Online calculators can give you a rough idea, but I'm going to tell you this. 100% of the time, they do not always include the correct property taxes, homeowner's insurance, mortgage insurance, closing costs, or the correct loan options for your scenario. So before you start falling in love with homes, you should understand your actual payment, the cash needed to close, and your overall budget. The right time is when the numbers, your lifestyle, and your long-term plans all line up. So let me give you a real-life example. I recently spoke with a couple who were looking into purchasing their first home. Their income was good, and they were already paying around $3,000 a month in rent. On the surface, it sounded like they might be ready, but once we looked more closely, there were two issues. They had high credit card balances, and their savings were not where they wanted them to be. So deep down, they already knew that they were not quite ready, but they needed to hear from someone they trusted. And honestly, they walked away with clarity and a solid game plan. So instead, forcing a purchase, they decided to renew their lease for another year. And during that year, they're going to be paying down their credit cards and saving more money. So think about it this way. Even if the market had been perfect, they were still not financially ready. And that honestly is okay. Sometimes the best outcome is not buying right away. Sometimes the win is knowing exactly what you need to work on so you can buy with confidence later and be in a better financial position. So here's a final takeaway. There is no universal best time to buy a home. A good decision is based on your personal readiness, goals, a sustainable monthly payment, and a realistic timeline for ownership. Yes, the market does matter, interest rates do matter, home prices matter, but none of those things matter more than whether the decision works for your actual life. If you found this episode helpful, make sure you follow First Time Homebuyer Pros Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content that will help you buy your first home with my personal insights. If you need a personalized game plan, you can reach out through the show notes, visit our website, or send me a direct message on Instagram at datloans. Remember, the goal is not just to get you approved here. It is to help you buy with clarity and confidence. I'll see you in the next episode.